What would pre-bailout General Motors have been if it were in the delivery business? The U.S. Postal Service. Like General Motors, as a result of inefficient operations and bloated employee costs, the post office is bleeding money. The difference is taxpayers have to cover losses incurred by the post office. Wait, that isn't a difference. But anyway, in a desperate attempt to achieve solvency, the Postal Service is considering cutting services and raising prices. Only in the la-la world of the government would that be considered a viable solution. The most controversial of the proposed changes is the end to Saturday delivery. I realize some businesses, most notably newspapers, would be affected by the loss of Saturday mail. But is that a sufficient reason to force taxpayers to fork over billions to subsidize a dinosaur operation? Outside of newspaper subscribers, who really cares if they get mail on Saturday? But if the impact to the newspaper business is a showstopper, I have an idea. Let's mandate that the millions of people collecting unemployment checks deliver newspapers on the weekend. Problem solved. The U.S. Postal Service lost $5.1 billion last fiscal year. And in what's supposed to be its most profitable time, the fourth quarter, it lost $3.3 billion alone. Projections estimate annual losses of $18 billion by the year 2015. Want to know why the post office loses so much money? Can you say bloated union contracts? At the risk of alienating any postal worker viewing this, postal workers are far more costly and far less efficient than their brethren in the private sector. A quick look at the salaries and benefits expense for Federal Express, UPS, and the Postal Service proves my point. The average cost per employee for Federal Express is just over $56,000. For UPS, it's just shy of $66,000. But for the Post Office, it's almost $87,000. That's right. The average postal worker costs over $20,000 more than a UPS employee and over $30,000 more than the average FedEx employee. But I'm sure they earn these higher salaries by being more productive. Like this diligent postal worker maximizing the utility of his equipment. But this must be an isolated incident because by one key measure of productivity, revenue per employee, the Postal Service doesn't fare any better. In this category, Federal Express tops the list with an average revenue per employee of just shy of $154,000. UPS is next at slightly less than $124,000, and the Post Office brings up the rear at about $118,000. The answer, of course, is obvious. Deliver on fewer days, slow down the delivery of mail, and raise the price of stamps. If that weren't bad enough, the management at the Postal Service isn't even competent enough to figure out how to do that without bringing in an outside consultant. The Postal Service has hired Evercore Partners, who coincidentally is run by former Treasury Department official Roger Altman, to review and advise it on the ongoing restructuring of its business model. I can save the Postal Service a great deal of time and money because the solution is obvious. Sell off the assets to FedEx or UPS for whatever they'll pay and let them run the operation.